So where do you stand on AI? Do you love it because it's made you so much faster, smarter, and you are now practically a legend in your own lunchtime? Or do you loathe it because it seems to be everywhere, following you, doing all kinds of things that are making people genuinely stupid, and it's coming for your job anyway? Or maybe you found a way to master the good, the bad, and the ugly, make the most of AI without getting caught in the traps. Well, wherever you stand, the book we look at in this month's Book for Thought Leaders is one that is worth a read so that you can be part of the conversation, be sure that you're winning this game, and really know what you are letting yourself in for or missing out on when it comes to AI. If this is your first visit to the channel, welcome to the Yazi Media Virtual Media House YouTube channel and this playlist where every month we explore one book for thought leaders. My name is Marie Leroux, and I identify as a human. But I'm very curious to see where this artificial intelligence thing can go when we really apply authentic intelligence to it. So let me give you a bit of a backstory on this book. The author, Arthur Goldstuck, was on the League of Visionaries podcast here on the Yazi Media YouTube channel as we were preparing for the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa's Convention 2024. And there we spoke about his upcoming book, the one we're talking about today. In my research, I got to find out a couple of really, really interesting things about him, including the fact that he has done something that very few humans have. In addition to having authored 18 books on his own, he's also been a co-author of two books with a cat. Now, collaborating with that kind of advanced life form does get my respect. So, Arthur has actually co authored two books with Merlin the Worried Cat. The first of them is Things Cats Worry About. And the other one is, well, let's see, the name is A Kitten's Guide to Learning to Code in Python with Merlin the Worried Cat. And so both these books were written in collaboration with Merlin, who is an actual rescue cat, though he was more of a muse, and the rest of the books were written in collaboration with AI. The Python book was written by Arthur in collaboration with AI, although Arthur does not know Python. So he can't code in Python himself, and so he completely depended on an artificial intelligence or generative artificial intelligence to prompt the book. So he took that on, and I do believe Merlin played a very important part in all this. But the fact is that the book came back with a full approval from Python coders, and it is available on Amazon alongside the other very important things cats worry about. So don't miss out on those. Available on Amazon in Kindle edition. But before having that interview with Arthur, I had been following him for a while, in fact, a long while, because before he started hitchhiking the galaxy with AI, he had an earlier book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Internet. But even that was the beginning of his life in tech, because in the prehistoric realm, when I started first discovering his work, he was the author of books like The Leopard in the Luggage and Other Urban Legends. He was a raconteur of urban legends at the time. And the reason why I tell you this is because he is still a raconteur, a storyteller of note. And as you read The Hitchhiker's Guide to AI, you will find that his storytelling just weaves all these concepts that can be so abstract together. So there is a great deal of good stuff to look forward to in this book. It really makes for a natural, comfortable, fun read. It's a conversation. But he knows that this is a book for everyone. If you take a look at The Hitchhiker's Guide to AI, this little loading symbol over here actually says a handbook for all. And it really attempts to be that. There's plenty of good coverage on the back and also a forward by Dr. Benjamin Rosman, who is the professor of AI and robotics at the University of the Witwatersrand, and he really frames the debate into which Arthur so bravely steps in this book in that forward. In the whole world of AI, robotics, and even technology at large, Of course, there is always that hunger and that futuristic craving for what is possible. Where can we actually go? And where can we boldly go where no man has gone before? And that is still such a discriminating statement. I mean, what about cats like Merlin, right? Not to mention the women. But the big quest is, how do we include everyone in that conversation and not just the card carrying geeks? But this book gets it right. And here's how. By the way, a little bit more backstory. There's an inscription in my copy, and I'll be sharing that with you at the end of this video, because you know what? That's really what the moral of this whole book is about. So apart from the foreword, there's also a section on how to read this book, and you'll see that it is super icon friendly for all those of us who have become used to using icons in our daily lives. There are parts of this book throughout. As you go through, you'll see there are icons in every chapter, in every section of every chapter, to tell you who this is for. So this is not necessarily a book that you need to read from front to back. It really is one where you can dip in and focus on the points that matter to you. So whenever you find a light bulb, this is general learning. The house is for consumer interest. Oh, let's see what else we've got here. The business chart is for business interest. Then there's a certificate icon for people who are in this for professional interest. And then for the gear icon, that is for the serious geeks. That is for technical interest. So you can actually flip through the icons and read the book that you or read the parts of the book that matter to you. And if it gets too technical, you can always just skip ahead. And for someone like me who likes to have access to the geeky stuff and doesn't want to be bogged down by it, I find that really handy. So this point of making it a handbook for all really means it is valuable no matter who you are and where you're at. And if you are a thought leader, this is the kind of topic that you really want to be informed on, whether it is simply to be able to have an informed opinion or to participate in the conversation around it. And also, especially for those of us who are business owners, who are leaders, who are people who are making an impact in the world, it really does matter that we can know what the conversation around this is and what the possibilities are in what we do. The truth is, you don't have to be AI genius, but it helps so much when you understand what is possible. And a lot in this book is really about learning what to give to the bots who are going to do the work for us. So that's really an exciting aspect and element of this book. And it does, since Arthur is a great storyteller, lead through from the development of how artificial intelligence has built on its development through time, on different technologies, and what has become possible. And then also the way that our current zeitgeist has developed from what is happening. Now, an alert here, I am sharing this book. This review is coming out about a year after the book initially came out. So it's not a perfectly crispy, fresh, hot off the press book. However, the fundamentals in here are so valuable that it really is worthwhile if you are still on the fence, or you feel that you haven't quite taken a stand, or you're feeling terrified, or maybe you've just jumped in boots and all. It still is a great way to get a background and a broader picture. So whether you are in the love it or the loathe it sphere, or you are somewhere in the middle on the fence, it really is a good way to go and understand the rest of the opinion. Because although Arthur is a tech whiz who has been at the leading edge of technology, and he's such a maven and a leader and an experimenter in this field, well, the truth is that he's not a blind follower of artificial intelligence or even any technology. And that is one of the most important takeaways from this book, is that he is very, very aware of his responsibility to make people understand that AI is not a good thing or a bad thing in itself. It really is about the implementation and about how we combine it with a human factor. And that is really where the gold lies in this whole dialogue and conversation. So throughout the book, he tells a bunch of stories, and many of those stories are especially focused around Africa, developing countries, and of course South Africa, where Arthur is based. And even if you're outside South Africa, or you're outside of Africa, or you don't live in a developing country, this is a very sobering perspective, because, of course, the developing economies don't have that immediate access where things have already been enveloped in technology. But when it happens, it tends to happen really fast. And the difference that it can make can be so significant. So, whether you are based in Africa or in another developing economy, or you are in an already developed economy, this is a really good way to get perspective. So that's another reason that makes this a fantastic read. So although there is a strong African focus, don't let that fool you. There is relevance here. And very often, what has happened in the emerging economies is that a new technology comes in and the emerging economies will leapfrog the developed economies because there is no established system for the old way that things used to work. And telecoms is a great example of this, and I think AI will be as well. In fact, some of the stories in here tell us about that already. So, for example, adoption of mobile phones was phenomenally fast in Africa, far, far, far beyond what people ever thought it would be. Even the telecoms companies themselves in Africa tell the joke internally of how they used to laugh at the pie in the sky goal of trying to have more people use mobile phones because they thought it would be unaffordable. But what they didn't realize was how many people never had access to a landline phone in their lives. So when cell phones became available, there was one game changer, and that was making available prepaid phones. And that's just one of the examples of how the lack of technology can actually set developing economies and emerging economies up for leapfrogging the developed world. So watch out, first world. We're coming for you, not the bots. But we do love you anyway. So, the way that Arthur frames the book is really fascinating. He has this Hitchhiker's Guide metaphor to take us through, and that actually really helps. It does feel like a journey, like a road trip almost, that takes you right through. And he looks into everything from the domestic appeal to very, very importantly, the chapter on basic training in AI. So, this is how to not look like an amateur. One of the things that bugs me most severely, and that is where I actually loathe AI, is when I see people using it badly. Now, this is very tempting for people who don't write, but as somebody who really cares about writing and who really pours my soul into it, I get quite upset when I see that somebody's spitting out a lot of AI generated garbage. Maybe it's not, they don't think it's garbage, it's more and better than what they usually write, but I can tell that it's not them. And many of us are very skeptical about the way that AI writing or AI generated writing can be so generic. And the same thing for the images that come from there. And even some would argue the code and other output that comes through. It's super, super generic because it's based on a circumscribed database. It's like taking everything, putting it in a blender, and turning it into a martini made from just everything that everybody has ever said. So it turns out really, really bland. But it's all in the way you use it. So there's a good amount of basic AI training here, and then the incredible art and science that in the chapter called The Art of the Prompt. And that is really where it all goes. But Arthur also sets you up for the value of writing from a human perspective and fine-tuning your prompts and also the output that comes from the bots. As a writer and a passionate journalist and even a copy editor in his past life, Arthur cares about language. So that high level of quality of language is important, but it also needs flavor. And he even has a little piece in here on did AI write this book? And the way that he frames his response to that is fascinating. So there are a whole number of topics in here that matter, whether you are just an ordinary everyday person who just cares about what life holds in store for you, about your online shopping, the technologies that are available to you, and what your kids are up to, for example, and whether they will be able to do things for themselves if they're becoming completely dependent on bots. Or maybe you are looking into how you can implement this in your business. Maybe you're serious about saving the world. All these topics are covered here, right down to how we can solve the food crisis, make sure that there's enough for everybody in this world. It really is fascinating. And if you're a music fan, there's a chapter just about that. So if you've been wondering where your recommendations on Spotify or Apple Music are coming from, this is the chapter to read. And of course, it would be futile to resist the opportunity to look into what the future holds. And it's fascinating how many of the predictions in here are already coming to pass as AI, just in the time that it's come into public observance since the launch or the open launch of ChatGPT, how much has accelerated and how much more is possible. So there is a whole lot in there. But the call at the end of this book is really very similar to what Arthur brings to our knowledge in his presentations, where I've been fortunate enough to have the chance to sit in, hear what he says, how people respond to the debate and the stimulating discussion and conversation that he unleashes, and also having the chance to ask him a question. So when I recently was at a presentation of his, I had the chance to ask one of the things that really bugs me about AI, and that is that I really put time and blood and sweat and tears into crafting the message that is important for me to share. And yet, I sometimes see that people are churning out something that might look remarkably similar to the untrained eye, with just one or two prompts from a generative AI bot. And I was asking Arthur, so at what point is it okay to involve the AI, and at what point should we stop? Is there a point at which it is cheating? His answer was a controversial one, and it's one that you'll find embedded throughout the book, and that is that it really relates in some ways to what technology really is. If you look up the word technology, it really means tool. Writing is a technology. A pen and pencil is a technology. All the things that we use to make our lives easier are all technologies. And so artificial technology is yet another one of these. Is it cheating to use a spell checker when you're writing an email? And in that case, is it cheating to use a chatbot to help you generate your text? Well, Arthur made a controversial statement, and I don't entirely agree personally. And that was, well, it's never cheating, but do be honest about it and do know what is the time and place. Obviously, for something like writing a book and claiming authorship, we know that publishers like Amazon are penalizing authors if it becomes clear that they have used generative AI software to build what they have written without acknowledging it. So there really is a time and a place to acknowledge it. Now, full disclosure from my side, I'm very happy to use a spell checker. Sometimes it really saves me from some embarrassing mistakes, and I usually do pay attention to my spell checker, although from time to time I overlook it. In fact, chances are that I have to check the spell checker, especially on some pieces of software, and especially if you are multilingual, you'll know that spell checkers can really mess you up when they start to predict for you in other languages. But I like to write my own material. However, I do believe that there is a time and a place to go and get your ideas from a source like a chatbot. Another point that came up from the wonderful Christian Nyembwe, who was at the presentation that I attended recently at the PSASA Pretoria chapter, was that it's called Chat GPT for a reason. Chat with a bot. It is a conversation. It really is about refining and refining your communication with a bot, and you'll be surprised at how well you can train your bots. Now, the debate around what can and can't be done by AI and whether our jobs are in danger and all these discussions do receive attention here. And when it comes to that discussion, you'll be far better equipped having read The Hitchhiker's Guide to AI. But I do believe that the conclusion that you'll come away from the book with, that I came away from the book with, is that the value of generative artificial intelligence in helping us to find ways to do things bigger, better, faster, perhaps in some cases more intelligently, is only valuable as long as there is human moderation. And the most important player in the whole artificial intelligence debate is, in fact, authentic intelligence. And that is you. And that is where Arthur's inscription in my book comes into play. What he's written is, to Marie, stay as human as you are. And so, in all my flawed humanity, I'd like to invite you to take a look at The Hitchhiker's Guide to AI, a handbook for all. by the wonderful author Goldstuck. While you're there, pick up a copy of Merlin the Worried Kitten's books as well. Those happen to be free, and the Kindle edition is linked here. You'll also find the softcover, print on demand, and not even print on demand because this is published by Pan Macmillan, so in South Africa at least, and available around the world at every bookstore that's worth its salt. If they don't have it, tell them to get it. So, human to human, I'd love to hear from you. Where do you stand on AI? What are your hopes? What are your fears? What are you using it for? What superpowers have you developed? And what have you learned to rein in when the bots get out of hand? I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to learn from you. I'd love to learn with you. And I'd also love to know when you would what book you would like to see reviewed next. I've got a couple in mind, and every month it's a real struggle to choose one. So if you recommend a book, I'd love to take a look at your recommendations and put yours in the review for an upcoming month on the Books for Thought Leaders playlist here on the Yazi Media YouTube channel. And so, if authentic intelligence is what you're all about and thought leadership is what you are building, this is the channel to keep growing and kindling the flame of your thought leadership. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments and seeing you online. Oh, and one more thing. If authentic intelligence is your thing, you might enjoy the Media Strategy Mafia, where once a month we get together online to talk about media, marketing, and other mafia stuff, like being human and all the complexities, agonies, and ecstasies that brings. I'd love to see you there, get to know what you do, and back you up in your thought leadership.